Greetings everyone, and welcome back to Luca Sprues. This is part 2 of the two-part series where we have a little look at the contents of the Revell Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress in 1/72nd scale. So if you haven't seen part 1, we basically had a little look at what's on the actual box and a little look at the instructions and talked a bit about some of the different variations of B-17 and basically had a look at how this model kit goes together. And today we'll be looking at the actual quality of the molds and having a little look at the details. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I'll have a little look at these decals before we actually get into the plastic parts. So as you can see, both of the aircraft schemes have pretty much the same kind of common stencils, the same markings for their groups, and the same usual Air Force insignia. A few common markings there, they all look of very good quality and pretty fine in terms of the details. You've got your instrument panel there. So nothing really to complain about too much. I believe the Revell decals are all quite good usually in terms of the silvering. The only main challenges I suppose you're going to have is these really thin walkway marking lines. Might be wise to break them up in case they are likely to split or break as you're putting them on. But otherwise quite nice decals there for the selection of schemes you have. Now let's actually take a look at the plastic parts. Right, so we've got a ton of plastic here to have a look at. We'll start with this one, with the fuselage halves. So we'll open this up. Absolutely massive bag there that we've got there in the end. So we'll have a look at this first sprue here. So you've got your first fuselage half. I'll hold that to the camera. As you can see, it's all recessed panel lines and a few raised parts. So that's all quite a nice little mix there. And you've got the section here cut out for the clear parts for the front of the nose section for the engineer and the bombardier, navigator, sorry. And internally, not too much other than just some internal ribbing. You can just see all of that there. And a few guide pins and horns to help line up some of the other parts. So most of the detail comes from additional parts that you put in there. But overall, it looks quite nice. They've got most of those basic panel lines there, so that is all looking relatively good. And you've got a nice simulated fabric effect on the control surfaces. I believe that would be your rudder there. And then you've got the floor section for the nose of the aircraft, for the bombardier and the navigator there. And then you've got the radio compartment floor there. And here is the other fuselage half. We'll have a look at that too. It's pretty much identical as the other one, and here we've got a few of the smaller parts. So there's a fair bit of flashing on this. The mold is probably starting to get a little bit old. These are your ammunition for the top turret, and that's all the top turret parts. That would be the early style B-17 tail turret there. And you've got some nice detail here on the ammunition belts. You can see the individual bullets, they've molded those in, so that's all quite nice. A good level of detail, I would say. A little bit more basic on some of the other ammo belts. They're just kind of flat plastic in the shape, roughly, of the ammunition, but that's all good. Your Norden bomb sight, which it's a little bit hard to show all the details, but there's a few little buttons there. All of the radios here are quite nicely done. They've got all the switches molded in, so that's all quite nice there. Again, a little bit of flashing on some of these finer parts, but overall nothing too bad. And here we've got some of the millions of 50 cals that are put on this aircraft. They're all quite nicely detailed. And here we've got one of the elevators. Sorry, that's the elevator here, and this is the aileron. So again, you've got quite a nice little raised kind of fabric detail there. So that all looks quite realistic and quite nice. Some lovely detail on the landing gear. If you want to have the aircraft on the ground, and you might need to add a little bit of weight to the wheels by sanding them down, but otherwise it's quite nice. They've got all of the tread pattern there, so that's good. And you've got some nice detail on your actual wheel hubs, so that's all good.
How do you add weight to wheels by sanding them down?
Good question, Greg. So basically, when an aircraft's on the ground, if you have a look at photos, you'll see that the tyres do actually flatten out because of the weight on them. Yeah. You'll notice the same thing with a car. You can just get a file and basically flatten one side of the wheels, and that will make it look like there's the illusion of weight being put on the wheels. Some model kits companies will actually supply a set of wheels that have been already molded to look like that. And that can save a little bit of effort and save the tread pattern, because obviously if you're going to change the shape of the wheels, it's going to distort that. But overall, that's generally quite hidden anyways, because it's on the underside. So yeah, as I said, nice wheels, and that's a little handy hint for all you modelers out there, if you haven't already figured it out. Then again, we've got a fair bit of flashing on these parts, and this is the actual assembly for the ball turret. Got a few seats here, again, a little bit of flash on some of the small parts there, which is going to be a little bit of a pain to remove, but not the end of the world there. You've got your seats, and your fine engine details. The cylinders are all quite nicely molded. You can see all the kind of ridge lines on them, so it's a little bit hard to show on the camera because that detail is very fine, but it's still quite nice. Then you've got your engine cowling there, and then some of your cow flaps and your actual propellers. So all looks quite good there. And you've got your elevator here. Again, it's sunken details, no rivets or anything. If you want to go overboard with the rivets, I'm afraid that's going to take a bit of work. So having a look at the details on the underside of the wing there, you can see that the turbochargers, as you saw in the instructions, are molded separately, so you get some nice detail on them. Some really nice detail in terms of the recessed panel lines on the underside. You've got all the access hatches, and you've got a couple rivets on some of the hatches there, which is nice to see. And then you've got the landing light kind of molded in as a bulb. But so you might want to replace that with something else if you want to extra detail that a little bit. Got some of the cow flaps, I believe that's the closed option. Then you've got your turbochargers just here, so there's some really nice detail there. If you want to add some holes there, you might have to use a bit of a needle and heat it up to make the actual holes in the exhausts. But otherwise, that's all good. Here you got your oil tank there, so some really nice detail there. It'll mostly be hidden, but it's still nice to know that you've got it there. Or you could open it up for a maintenance diorama. These are B-17G specific parts, so that's your antenna, and you've got the H2X radar there, and your fairing for the nose cowling there. And you've got some more what looks like ammunition belts, probably for the waist gunners, I believe. A little bit of flashing on that and not too much detail, unfortunately, but that's okay still. And then you've got a few extra parts for the landing gear, I believe. Upper surface of the wing, you can see, again, it's all recessed details, and you've got all of the access hatches for the fuel and the oil tanks all molded in, so that's nice. And you've got a few other extra maintenance hatches, so not too bad in terms of the level of detail. Could be better with rivets, like I said, but that's okay. It's not every kit that you'll get that. That's quite a rare thing, really. So not too bad with the wings there. And here we've got some more interior parts, and these are quite nicely done. So this is your bulkhead for the bombardier's position. As you can see, they've molded in the doors there, and there's a little bit of internal ribbing. Some of those slots are for the radio equipment that you add in later. Then we've got the tail wheel just here. That's the underside. I'll show you the other side. So yeah, not too much there. Again, this is the, I believe that would be to access the flight deck here. So you got a little bit of internal ribbing and a couple of what looks like circuit breakers. They're all quite nicely molded there. Another door access there, and again, some very nice details. Here's your bomb bay door, so it's got all the ribbing there. There's a few injector pin markings, so if you're going to have the bomb bay doors open, you might have to fix that up a little bit. But otherwise, not too badly detailed. There's the bulkhead for the navigator and bombardier's position. There's a little bit of molded detail, a few kind of what looks like possibly dials of some kind there. So definitely not too bad an idea to get out some reference photos as you do this. Not too complex on the flight deck, just some basic kind of shapes to represent the rudder pedals. But you're not going to see too much of that anyways. But you do have some very nice raised detail. You've got some of your engine controls all of there. So that's quite nice. And then you've got your little walkway there. Not a huge amount of detail other than just the basic kind of ribbing. But not too much flash with the exception of the ammunition belts there on this sprue. So not looking too bad there. And there's some very nice details. Moving on, we've got another set of wings, so we've already kind of had a look at that, so that's all good. You've got the bulkhead for the tail wheel to retract into, and you've got all of your internal parts for the radiators and the supercharger air intakes. Bulkheads for the landing gear, some very nice detail on the inside there. And then you've got your actual landing gear struts, and they are quite nicely detailed there too. A little bit of a flat wash on that is going to look really nice, I reckon. And then you've got your instrument panel just here, and it's a little bit tricky to show, but you've got all of the instruments molded, and there's some very nice detail there. You've got the option to do a decal with this kit, or you could just paint them by hand. They're quite nice. So I'll probably use the decal because it's a bit easier and you can still make the most of that raised detail. So looking nice with that. And these are mostly just a repeat of another sprue. Whoop, we've had one part come loose, and that is one of the navigator seats. So otherwise the packaging in this kit's really quite good. There's not too many loose parts. It's not all in one bag, so not too cluttered there. So basically we've got more bombs and more machine guns on that sprue. Again, another repeat of all the engines and the landing gear parts, so nothing too special in the way of that. Again, a little bit of flashing on these parts, but otherwise it's the same as the other sprue. Those two are just duplicates. And we'll have a little look at our clear parts just here. So you've got a lot of different options for different B-17 variants. You've got two sets of like side windows here. You've got different tail turrets, different radio room compartment windows, and you've got the different cockpit windows. So a lot of variety there. Overall, the quality is not too bad on these ones. Tiny bit of distortion with the rounder shapes for the Bombardier's glazing nose. But overall, it's not too bad, especially for something so round. And the plastic is not too thick, so that's alright. The ball turret is probably one of the hardest assemblies, but as you can see, there comes in two clear sections there that you have to stick together, so it's really hard to put them together without accidentally fogging them up, so take care with that one. The turret, rear turret looks a little bit distorted and a little bit scratched, so there's a little bit of flashing, so not the best, but overall not too bad. And that finally completes the inbox review of the Revell B-17G Flying Fortress. So overall, as I'm sure I've mentioned many times before, this is an excellent kit and I definitely recommend it. In the not too distant future, there'll be a few videos on actually building this one, hopefully. It'll be part of, as I said, a restoration project at the Queensland Air Museum of a display dedicated to the Pathfinder Force. And it involves one B-17 Fortress being fitted out with the experimental H2S radar, and that would have been an early G model. So it's most likely we'll be actually using this model to replace an old Airfix G model, since this one is the early version with the two waist guns lined up. And that brings to another point, so this is an excellent B-17. I would say it's probably one of the best on the market. Another pretty much, in my eyes, equal, if not maybe a tiny little bit better, just because of the quality of the sprues being a little bit better and being a slightly more up-to-date kit. The Airfix B-17G, which I happen to have here, being in a hobby store, it's very easy to get a hold of model kits. So this G version is the later one, with the main difference between the Revell kit and the Airfix kit is that the waist guns in the Airfix kit are the later staggered kind. Both of these kits I can't recommend enough. The Revell is slightly cheaper at around about $75 from memory, with the Airfix one being a little bit over $80. So it's up to you really, it's only a subtle difference, and they're both very, very good kits. So if you fancy a go after having a look at this video, come on down to Tectonic Hobbies. We are happy to get them in stock if we don't actually have them in stock at the moment. But as of the time of this video, we do have the Airfix one and the B-17F in stock, and I'd imagine we'll be getting the G model back in stock very, very soon. So otherwise, thank you very much for watching this video. I do hope you found it useful, and if you did, please be sure to leave a like. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos or anything to do with this video, be sure to leave it down in the comments section below. And a special shout out to my wonderful patrons. If you're interested in having a little look at some exclusive behind the scenes content and also getting slightly early access videos, then go join my Patreon page. And as I said, thank you to my wonderful patrons, Archie Palmer, Emo, J&K Jones, and Joe Moss. And thank you to everyone else, and until the next video, model on.